Hey! What's up, everybody? Great to see you as always. And you know what to do. Hit like and subscribe and turn on your notifications. And let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want, though it's probably closer to average than good. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside Charlie Davies and Tony Meola, and we are excited to jump into it as always. We have a very special guest, Feilhaber, that's going to be joining us in the next segment, and he was with us at the Nations League, and that was a lot of fun. So we're excited to talk to Benny once again. He's got some Kansas City news to get into in the emergency podcast. But I wonder how you guys. We didn't have a chance in our emergency podcast yesterday to ask about your weekend. Big Tones, great to see you. How was your weekend, my friend?
Wait, before we get into weekends,
what?
We got to get the legend Tony Meola's take on all this. His former
that's
teammate,
right. He
Peter
was a part of the
Vermes.
emergency podcast.
We're talking about the absolute legend.
You're right.
The only MVP as a goalkeeper in MLS as a Sporting Kansas City player. Let's go.
Right. He's known Peter since they were like in the womb. So Big Tones.
Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah, look, I don't think anyone's surprised. I don't think Peter's surprised by the timing of this. Some people thought it lasted a little bit too long. They were trying to rebuild and give Peter some time. I said on Morning Footy today, I took a different angle and not necessarily looking at the record right now. Peter Vermes is helped transcend this league in so many different ways. 17 years, I put him in as one of the most influential people that we've had in Major League Soccer. We're going to look at it from the team failed over the last 2 seasons, right? That's how we're going to look at it because that's now. But if you want to, what's the term? Give flowers, right, to somebody these days. This guy was on the forefront of just about everything with Bruce Arena, with Bob Bradley, with Ziggy Smith, guys that pressed the league to make changes to rules, to get more players in, to do things. If you go back to COVID, Peter was the guy that started the COVID protocol and how teams could start to train in their own communities in different groups, and then was at the forefront of the bubble that we had down in Orlando. Like, that's how much they respected what he did. But again, it was the right time. And I understand people will say, well, it should have been done a year ago or whatever. I get it, but they made the choice now to do it. And nothing, and I texted as much to Peter. I mean, he should be proud of what he did in Kansas City, man. He helped build that stadium. He helped build the culture there. Jimmy, we played in Kansas City. There was no soccer culture in Kansas City until this ownership group, along with Peter Vermes, worked on creating a soccer culture to the point where they're going to host the World Cup. They're one of the hosts of the World Cup. So, right time. Sporting needs to move in a different direction, but I thought I'd just sort of remind people of what Peter has done over the years. And I get it. He's a friend of mine. Always will be, always was, always will be. That doesn't change. And again, I go back to, I don't think that he is surprised by the move.
Well, all right. His legacy is secure. Yes. Very well said. And we'll get into it in the next segment with Benny as well. Chuck, how did your U9s play? Did you guys play this weekend? How'd you do?
Yeah. We lost, unfortunately. But
hey, Davies out. Can we get the hashtag Davies out going?
Yeah,
get this guy out of his job.
Hey, it's one of the, what do you expect from 9-year-olds?
I don't know. You're the coach. You tell us.
Yeah, we left a lot on the table. We had created some good chances. We just finishing wasn't great. And at this age, Tony, tell me if I'm wrong. It's really difficult to find kids who want to just play goalie. And most kids are like, I don't want to play, but you're forced to figure out who can play and who's good enough to play without like taking off super talented players on the pitch with potential. It's a real struggle at 9. And I don't know, Tony, when you realize like this is where I want to be a goalie forever and not play on the field.
He's given a really diplomatic response to, I want to put my worst players in goal, but I don't.
No.
I think my coach looked around when I was like 6. He's like, which kid is the one that looks like he can't run up and down the field? It's that one right there. That's the guy. Put him in goal. It's difficult, and it's the one. Chuck, to your point, it's the one position I never thought you could force anybody to do. Like, you ask who will do it. It's not one that you want to force kids to do, right? Because it's an uncomfortable position, and it has nothing to do with like wins or losses of soccer games, just their confidence in general, right? You don't want to put them in a position where they're like cowling up into a ball and you're like, oh, this kid, like, he hates soccer now, you know?
Exactly.
Or she hates soccer. Like, that's not what you want to do. I get it. It's hard, man. It's hard.
Oof. It's a
tough sounds like your team needs to work on some mental toughness and resiliency, which seems to be a big theme for soccer in this country, especially with the men's national team. All right, they took us straight today. Let's get into some notable performances from Americans abroad, because some nice performances, I should say, overall. I was trying to find a better word, but I'm going to stick with that one. Chris Richards, we're going to start with him, recorded a match-high 9 clearances in Crystal Palace's 3-0 FA Cup win versus Fulham. They are now in the semifinals of the FA Cup, trying to win their first ever major trophy. Wow, Palace fans would lose their goddamn minds if they end up winning that one. And it feels more wide open than ever. They're going to play Aston Villa in the semifinals at Wembley. Johnny Cardoso scored in a 2-1 win for Real Betis versus Sevilla. And that was a big deal. They actually haven't beaten Sevilla. This is the El Gran Derby, a very big one in the city of Seville. They haven't beaten them in the league in almost 7 years. So they celebrated like it, which was pretty cool to see. Josh Sargent scored a match-winning goal in a 1-0 win versus West Brom. Chuck, he missed not a sitter, but a goal he probably should have scored earlier in the game, but totally redeemed himself, to borrow the quote from Dumb and Dumber, to seal the 3 points for Norwich. Brendan Aronson scored 33 seconds into the game for Leeds versus Swansea. Unfortunately, their goalkeeper made a couple errors, and that ended 2-2 versus Swansea. Weston McKennie played 90 minutes and recorded 4 recoveries in a 1-0 win versus Genoa. And Big Tones, I'm going to come to you first on now with Igor Tudor in charge of Juve. They went into a 3-4-2-1 formation. It looked like Weston was chilling, at least on paper, as the left wing back, even though it looked like he was coming central at times. And then Tim Weah came on in the 82nd minute, had a good chance to maybe win the game at the very end. Goalkeeper made a good save. But what do you think about how Juve looked and how Weston kind of fit into that puzzle?
Yeah, well, we didn't know, right? With a new manager, we saw Timothy Weah go to the bench, and Weston McKennie playing yet again another position. So add left wing back to his position. It's been only center backs and goalkeeper that he hasn't played for Juventus this year. He's played even in the number 9 role. So, yeah, he fits in. You just wonder when Cambiasso comes back what that means for Weston McKennie if you're going to play as center backs, because it looks like Thuram and Locatelli are the 2 guys in the middle of the field where I think Weston is most effective. And as you mentioned, he kind of drifts to the middle of the field anyway. So I thought he played well enough as a wing back, but maybe not a guy that's going to get forward in the attack and all of that, and all those things we expect from some wing backs. But that's to be expected with the way his game is. It's good to see him on the field. You just wonder what it looks like moving forward here.
Yeah, no, that's probably the best way to say it. We got to just be patient and wait to see how this all plays out. But again, yes, it's nice to see him get 90 minutes. I have a question for you, resident number 9, Charlie Davies, about Josh Sargent.
Yes.
The dude hasn't scored for us in 5.5 years, which is crazy. Ivis is saying in our private chat that maybe we should wear green and yellow when he plays for the U.S. team, so that maybe he'll score a goal. He's dangerous, obviously.
Such a troll.
I mean, he is such a troll. But there was something that when I watched Norwich play, Borja Sainz in particular, excellent player, one of the best in the championship, does a good job of kind of rolling. He beats that first line of pressure, and that's when I think Josh Sargent's at his best. Like all of a sudden, one of the midfielders has broken through that line. They're running at the back 4, and now Josh can make those little darting runs to get in behind or just create a passing lane. And the Panama game felt a little unfair to Josh because there just was no space. Panama did a good job of blocking that. Do you think Josh Sargent is running out of time? Do you think Josh Sargent's running out of time? Ultimately, is where I wanted to get to.
Yeah. With all due respect, with what we see from Josh Sargent in the championship, you say, wow, this is a striker with a lot of quality. He can score goals in a lot of different ways. Somebody you can rely on in front of goal, someone who can create and not afraid to take on. But when you make the jump to international football, and I say it time and time again, it doesn't always translate what your club form is to the national team level. Sure, it might get you to the door, right? But you got to walk through the door. And the speed of play, teams are playing with it's almost like this, I got to play for my life. I have to play for my family, for my country. It's a different type of feel when you play international, especially when you're playing against a team like Panama. Those guys, a lot of them are playing for their families, their legacy, for generations, for an opportunity to get another club interested in them. So they're defending with everything they have. That's the type of games that you play. It's that you're not always playing against the Frances and the Spains and the Brazils of the world or Argentinas, where it's easy to get motivated, where teams are throwing numbers forward and, we have much more space now. But there were times against Panama when I watched that match where Josh could have done some of the things that we've seen him do at Norwich City. The one time that I can remember is he got a ball and he's faced the center backs. It's 1 versus 2. And he slows down. That's the time where you need him to say, I'm aggressive. I don't have many of these opportunities. I got to go. And at least try to make something out of nothing. At least try to get a half chance. At least try to take a shot on goal. But in that case, it didn't come to fruition. I'll also go back to the ball that was cut back to him, and he scuffs it, it hits the defender, and comes off the post. He didn't get a clean strike on it. And that can happen. But if we're talking about each time he gets an opportunity with the U.S. and these things happen, I talked to him before the game. I said, Josh, this is your moment. You're coming into the camp as the number 1 striker. Take this opportunity. You've got good. I said, you got great club form. You're confident. This is your chance. Go and get
pressure on him.
Go and get it. I said, you're ready for it. Go and get it. And that's what ultimately happened against Panama. So what happens in world football when you don't make the most of your chances, especially at the national team level, you go from here and you go bottom.
Yeah,
it's the next guy's turn.
Yeah, that's so he falls into this category that I want to get into, where I think we could probably, I don't know how many players. I guess that's open for discussion for everybody watching as well. Like who are locks for 2026, right? And then who are close but need to prove themselves in the Gold Cup. And need to see a little bit more, right, over an extended period of time. So the Gold Cup becomes important, as we've discussed. Now, I feel like Josh Sargent could be hanging out in that goal. He's in that Gold Cup side. I don't have him locked in for 26 yet, right? I feel like Pochettino and his staff need to see a little bit more. And Johnny Cardoso has scored an unreal goal this weekend in a high-pressure game, which I love to see. And they end up winning that one, which is important. Cucho Hernandez, by the way, got the winner. Shout out to the Columbus crew. They clearly developed him. And then Malik Tillman comes back into the team. PSV versus Ajax. PSV needed to win that game. Serginho Dest got the start. That was great to see. PSV needed to win that game to stay relevant in the Eredivisie race. It's going to be, they lost 2-0 at home to Ajax. Ajax have a 9-point lead at the top. It seems insurmountable at this point.
Yeah.
Malik Tillman comes on at halftime, and within 3 minutes, he had this combination play where he it looked like he was going to shoot from distance, cut some guy, looked and got it back. I was like, okay, cool. I like that. I liked what I saw, got the confidence going again. But I don't know if Malik Tillman's still a lock for 26. He's a Gold Cup guy. And so for sure. And then he's in the conversation. Both him and Sargent are in the conversation. But I feel like we need to start maybe tiering this, like, okay, these are locks for 26. And then these guys, I need to see a little bit more. Toes, is there any other players? Are you in that camp as well? Malik Tillman and Sargent are kind of still Gold Cup guys. And yeah, I want to talk about Matt Turner as well, but I want to get your thoughts on this really quick.
Yeah, just how are we defining Gold Cup guys, right? Because don't you think he's going to call everyone that's available now based on what happened here? That would be my only question. We still got to see center backs, right? Cameron Carter-Vickers, who is he? I didn't like necessarily what I saw against Canada. Would think Mark McKenzie, if we had split him in those two categories, he's a World Cup guy right now, right? He believes in him. Chris Richards, as much as I don't think that he's played well in a national team jersey, he's done well at the club level. So throw him. Gio Reyna, where do you put him? I would think, based on what you're saying, Jimmy, and how you're kind of categorizing this, Gio Reyna, for me, is a Gold Cup guy right now. We still need to see him. Jack McGlynn is a Gold Cup guy, although he, for me, showed a lot of faith in Jack McGlynn, putting him in for who was it, Tanner Tessman, right? In that game, in the same position,
ahead of Luna, ahead of Reyna, ahead of these other guys. And I'll add to that, Tony, is Gio. This becomes a must perform well tournament. This Gold Cup, it's
and
not
he
even
might not be available,
Gold Cup
right?
guy. It's like he's got to shine.
But yeah, I think there's I don't think Gio's going to be at Dortmund by that time. I think but the question is, does he take him knowing that now you're going to a new club. Because how many times have we seen managers go, hey, Charlie Davies is going to a new club here. Let's not take him for this camp. Let's let him go get settled in at his club, right? So there's a little bit of that. So even if he's not at Dortmund, is he even available based on how Pochettino wants to play it? Patrick Agyemang, 3 goals, I think, now in 4 games, if I have it right. I still think he's a Gold Cup guy. Even if he was a lock for 26, even if you thought he was a lock for 26, you're like, he's only played 4 international games. Like, we got to get him as many international games as you can. So I got to bring him anyway. So those kind of names, and we know Pulisic and we know Timothy Weah and McKennie.
Those are locks.
Yeah. So, but I think some of them will be there anyway.
Yeah, of course, you still bring them in. I'm not trying to say that if they're World Cup locks, they shouldn't come into the Gold Cup, but I'm just saying there are some guys, man, the Gold Cup becomes really, really important. And I know we're going to have some meaningful friendlies as well. We're going to have to add as much meaning as possible, but yeah. Before
Jimmy, I want to see another goalkeeper. I'm sorry. I'm
glad. I was going to pivot to Matt Turner because Matt Turner, their coach, Crystal Palace's coach, Oliver Glasner, comes out and says, I'm going with Dean Henderson. He's going to be our number 1 through the cup competitions, even though Matt Turner's been the guy up until this point. So he's got benched for the quarterfinal, and we got to see another goal. We got to see another goalkeeper, because if he doesn't sort out his club situation, we can't go into a World Cup without a goalkeeper playing regularly. We just can't do it. So the Gold Cup becomes, again, another important vehicle to make that happen. But I don't think you give the first game to Matt Turner. You got to give it to somebody else. And so that's a frustrating position. Go ahead, Tones. What do you got?
Yeah, you're right. But I would just add this: Diego Kochen, he's on the bench at Barcelona. I've said he's not been in the first team, but in a tournament like this, I'd like to see him in camp. And depending on what happens in the draw, there's got to be a game in there for him. Like, I don't know that we need to see the same goalkeeper for 3 games in the first round. Like, there has to be some game that we can see him in, and he may not get a lot of play in that game, but I need to see him on the field. I need to see him, whether it's him or somebody else. Just need to see him in a game and how they react to things and how they deal with things. Like, I don't need to see Matt Turner. I don't want to know that Matt Turner is getting sharp on national team games, right? Mm-hmm. Where he might be a guy, though. Now that I think about this, Chuck, he might be a guy in the same position as Gio Reyna, that he might be at a new club, and we might say, you know what, let him go get settled in his new club, and you don't even bring him into camp.
Right.
Yeah.
It all depends. I've been in this situation where I got called into Confeds Cup. I could have gone back to my club in Sweden to play, but Gold Cup was right on the precipice. Like from 5 days later, and so my Swedish club allowed me to stay with the U.S. men's national team because it was a summer where I wanted to leave, and they knew that, so they said, okay, well, it can't hurt with him being at the national team, and so I went to Gold Cup. Now Bob was like, hey, you played the Confeds Cup. We're not gonna, we want to give other guys a look. So initially, I started the first game. We won 4-0 in Seattle. Then we went to DC. I'm on the bench. Came off the bench, and then we beat Honduras on the bench at home in Boston, which was tough to be. First time with the national team in my home city. But we tied it, and we tied Haiti. And then I got bought by Sochaux in France, and I left mid Gold Cup. So this is one of those things where we're looking at Gio Reyna and we're looking at Matt Turner in particular, because Dortmund could still be contracted to Dortmund or still with Dortmund, and they say, you know what, go to Gold Cup. That's where you're going to get your stock up because you're going to play. You're not going to play here, so go to Gold Cup, get your stock up, and then make your move, right? Same with Matt Turner. If Matt Turner's still with Nottingham Forest at that point, that's where he's going to kind of showcase his ability so that a club can come and buy him. Otherwise, if they do get signed to both of them, we all know preseason is king for all of these coaches in Europe. You better be there. They want to see how you integrate with the squad, how you fit in with their tactics. You have to be there. Otherwise, you're on the back foot, and then you went from starter to backup just for missing most of preseason.
So what kind of tactics have you seen, Tones, from Pochettino and the staff in terms of the asks of the goalkeeper position? I know there's of course, just in general, most coaches want goalkeepers that are adequate with their feet and can help us play out of difficult situations. Honestly, I just want the guy to stop the shots that we need him to stop. And then everything else is secondary for me.
Yeah, I said on the desk last week with Chuck and the guys, Jimmy, my order of operation for goalkeepers: make saves is first in line for me. It's got to be it. And I think we get away. As simple as that sounds, I think we get away from that sometimes. The second is a presence in goal. Right, be a presence and give your team confidence. And now third is can you play with your feet? Right. And that's kind of my order of operation of how I look at goalkeepers. I don't think Pochettino has made it complicated for the goalkeepers. It's get the ball and give it to a center back. If you can't do that, or give it to a wing back. If you can't do that part efficiently, then you're probably not playing at this level, right, at all. And all the guys can do it efficiently. He doesn't make it intricate. He's not asking them to split passes and like we see some goalkeepers, and that works for guys who can do that. So when it's not your forte, if you will, you don't make it. And the one thing that I always said about Matt when it came to his feet was I always looked at it, and I've said it on this podcast when I started, a while back. There were a couple games where if there's like three options, center back, wing back, and maybe split a guy somewhere or whatever, I always felt like he picked the third option, like to show us that he could do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And for me, I look at it the other way. Just make it simple. It really, what coach would have a problem if you played a ball to a wing back, right? No one would have a problem. So just make it simple. Don't make it any more complicated than it needs to be. We don't have guys that are great with their feet. What I have noticed from Zach Steffen lately, his long distribution, and when I say long, that 30 to 50 yard pass, the ball's flying off his foot. I get he plays in Colorado, but I looked at him also away games, and that makes a big difference. That part of his game's becoming pretty good. So from a guy who maybe sees a forward, sees Chuck running in the channel, he's the guy I think that's most equipped to not anymore, Chuck. I'm just going back in the day. But you know what I'm getting at. Then he's most equipped to play that type of ball. And quite honestly, if you lose that ball, you don't give up anything defensively. But that's kind of my take on the goalkeeper pool.
All right, homework for everybody, not including us and everybody at home. Who are locks for your World Cup team and who are just gold cuppers? That's what we need to see. They need to put that work in to make sure they cement their status for the World Cup roster. That's your homework for you. We'll come back and check it on Thursday for sure. All right, we're going to take our first break of Call What You Want. When we come back, we have a very special guest who also played at UCLA, so he's an absolute legend in my eyes. Do not go anywhere.
She knows, and I know she knows.
All right, welcome back in to Call It What You Want. Let's see those comments, everybody. If you're watching this live on the Golasso America YouTube channel, get those comments out. We got a special guest joining us, Benny Feilhaber. What's up, Benny? Great to see you as always. And we get to see a lot of your handsome face over these last couple weeks.
I got my KC pride colors, Jimmy.
That's it.
I saw the show yesterday. I wanted to try and look better than you did.
Well, that's impossible, but I appreciate you attempting to make that happen. Okay, so you're here. You were coaching Sporting Kansas City 2 over the last couple of years. You're not this particular season. That might be for the best. It's maybe too soon for that. But on August 4th, 2009, that was the day that Peter Vermes was appointed interim coach of Sporting Kansas City. Now, this is what was happening around the world at this time. Funny People, if you remember that movie, I barely remember it, starring Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen, was the #1 movie at the U.S. box office. I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas was the #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100. LeBron James was still a Cleveland Cavalier. This was before the decision. Lionel Messi had exactly 0 Ballon d'Ors. Now he has 8. Kevin Sullivan wasn't even born yet. Okay, he was born a couple months later, September 8th, so a month later. And then I don't know what Charlie was doing in 2009, but I was still playing on the team, City Wizards, when Peter Vermes took over, and now he's not in charge anymore. Benny, I don't know what you were doing in 2009. You had just finished scoring bangers in 2007. You scored a banger. right? In the Gold
I
Cup.
was telling Charlie, 2009 was Confederations Cup. One of my jerseys
That's
back
right.
here.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So talk to us about what it was like to work and play for Peter Vermes.
Look, I mean, I think Tony said it really well in the first segment where Peter changed everything about Kansas City. And I wasn't here, before it was Sporting Kansas City, before the new ownership. I came back to MLS in 2011. Obviously, Peter had already been the coach for a couple of years, but it was right around that time that Sporting started turning from a team that didn't have much success into a powerhouse back then in the Eastern Conference. And I remember I went, a year and a half to New England. And when my contract ran out there, I wanted to go to a winning club, winning mentality. And it was Sporting KC was at the top of the list. And I knew Peter from the under 20s, where me and Charlie got to know him as an assistant coach. And obviously, look, when I was able to come here, it was, the first place that I had been in my career where I was playing at a high level and the club was one of the best teams in the league. And so it was a very important club for me. Obviously, the place that I had the most success as a player under Peter, and Peter was the coach. And I sent him a message yesterday as well to let him know about how much gratitude I have for the things that he gave me. And I became the best version of myself here in Sporting Kansas City. And back then we were a team that played high press, aggressive on the front foot, similar to what a Red Bulls is nowadays. But I feel like we were the first team that kind of did that. And that was, Peter's mentality of being in your face. Always a hard-nosed coach, motivated his players. Obviously a different time period in the league back then. But again, it was the best time of my career. And there's no doubt about it that it was mainly because of Peter Vermes. And so, I owe a lot to him, not only as a player. He gave me essentially my first opportunity as a coach. And so I'm very thankful. And again, he is the fabric of what Sporting Kansas City is. And look, what I'll add to what Tony said, I know that there's, a lot of maybe negative feelings these last couple of years because of the results. But, after the decision was made to let Peter go, mutually part ways, I've already seen, whether it's on, social media, Twitter, Instagram, or X, or whatever it's called nowadays, a lot of the positivity coming back and being thankful, grateful for what Peter gave to this city, to this club. So I think it's turned very quickly. And obviously, there was a lot of disappointment in the last couple of years from a results perspective. But I think people understand that what Peter's legacy, what he's done here, far exceeds, what we've seen in the short period of time over the last 2 seasons.
So in your mind, Benny, who's the next hire? What would make sense? Because given the squad, is this a salvageable season with the current squad? Do you think this? What's the kind of like the end game with this current squad, and what type of players is Kansas City missing? Considering, when you were there with during the heyday, you had different types of player profiles, gifted guys on the ball, guys good in the counterattack. But where do you see Kansas City going from here?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question for the ownership group. And I don't know exactly what their mentality is. I'm not sure how quickly, from a short-term perspective, they want to, get the team winning again. Is it one more where it's like a longer build? I know they talked about with Peter with like a 3-window rebuild kind of thing. I don't know if that's necessary in MLS. I think you can do it a little bit quicker because of the parity in the league. And I know that Kansas City has a real opportunity, I think, in the winter at the end of this season in terms of contracts to really do whatever they want with the roster. Look, you're asking my opinion in terms of the team. I think there's potential on the team. I think there's players that aren't playing at their best right now. And that could be confidence, right? That could be the style of play. That could be, just a new voice, the new coach bump could potentially help that as well. So I wouldn't say that this season is lost. I mean, dude, it is MLS. You need 9th place to make the playoffs. I remember, I think it was in 2016, I believe, where Seattle Sounders, we played against them at home. They lost 3-0 to us. They played terribly. Ziggy got fired back then. Rest in peace, Ziggy. And then Schmetzer took over. There was also a big development in the player where Ladero came in at that moment. They went on to win the league that year, right? From last to best. And so do I think this season is salvageable? 100%. I do think that the quality is there. Are they the best team in the league from talent? No, they're not. But you're able to compete with, I think, the talent that's on that roster. And I think that, you know, whether it's Carey right now as the interim, or if they go and find a new coach, you know, during the middle of the season, I do think that should be the goal, to try and get into the playoffs, return the competitiveness of the club so people can be excited to go to the stadium and watch the team and be a little bit more entertaining than we've seen in the last couple of seasons. But at the end of the day, with how MLS is established, I think that, you know, this team get back into the playoffs, and if you get in at the right moment with the right momentum, who knows what's possible.
Yeah, Benny, I watched this team. I'm not quite sure that they're there yet. I think that the other question would be, do they hire a coach before they make a decision on Mike Burns as the sporting director? Again, another guy who's just come in under Peter. By all accounts, you know, Peter was still his boss in the end, based on you know, what you're hearing and what kind of we've known for a couple of years and how the club structure goes. Which one do you think they make a decision on first? Because obviously, if Mike Burns is there, he's going to have a say in who the manager, or at least we would assume that he has a say in who the next manager is.
I don't know. I don't have the answer for it. I think it depends how they view Mike Burns in that role. Obviously, he was not the first choice when they hired him. I mean, there was the Gavin Wilkinson, you know, debacle for that week. And then Mike Burns came after that. I know that they interviewed a lot of different people that, you know, for whatever reason, either didn't take the job or didn't get the job. I don't know how the owners feel about Mike Burns for the long haul. And I think that they would agree that whatever coach they hire, they want them to have a good relationship with the sporting director to some degree. And so you don't want to bring in a coach that's not going to want to work with Mike Burns and vice versa. So a really good question, Tony. I'm not sure what the answer is. From what I've gathered, Mike Burns' contract runs out at the end of 2025, and then I think it's an option year after that. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but that's what I've heard. And so there's a lot of opportunity from the ownership group to decide what they want to do. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to hire a coach immediately and you don't want that coach to necessarily work with Mike Burns, I mean, you can get rid of Mike Burns and hire someone else as well, right? That's always a possibility. I know in our sport that happens a lot. And so it will be interesting to see what they look to do. I'm hoping for the club right now that Carey can bring some, change, right? I don't know if stability is the word, because I think, you know, it's not like we're an unstable club, but it's been not very entertaining, right? Teams or fans have been unhappy with the performances on the field, regardless of the results. And so I'm hoping that Carey can bring a little bit of change and some entertainment and excitement, so that maybe it gives the ownership a little bit more time to decide what they want to do. But again, a lot of questions more than answers. I think I'm very curious to see what's going to happen from here on out.
Benny, we bring you on to have answers, and we're going to quote you on everything, just so you know that moving forward. Okay, let's pivot to the U.S. Open Cup, because you are currently playing for the Des Moines Menace, and you took down Sporting KC's second team, which was the team you were coaching in the first round. Congratulations on that. The weather conditions were unplayable, but you still found a way to make it happen. Now you're playing against Union Omaha this Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. East. Hopefully you started stretching. What's really cool is the U.S. Open Cup is coming to Paramount Plus from round 3 to the final. We're very excited to have that in the family. Are you going to even make it to the third round? Do you think you guys, it's a whole bunch of old ex-players basically driving this in the Open Cup. How are you guys feeling about your chances against a good Union Omaha team?
Yeah, literally driving. I'm driving to Des Moines today, actually, to get our training session in with the team today before the game. So, look, I'll say this. It's funny, right? With an amateur team, I've never had this experience, but you almost got to reset the roster, because there's guys that are literally not able to make the second game that were there for the first game because of work reasons and whatnot. So you lose a couple players. I think we lost 3 guys. We're trying to add 3 guys, which we've been able to do. I think for the second game, we're thinking about, we need a little bit more of a balanced team out there, and not necessarily this roster that you see of 37 plus year olds. So we'll try and balance the youth and the experience, as we like to call it, a little bit better. But we feel pretty good. We're playing at home. It's turf, which is not as fun, but we're playing at home. We'll have our fans there, so that'll push us. We won't be playing against the wind, so we won't look like kites flying in the wrong direction, because that's what it felt like in that game. And we have hope. That's all we got right now, right? We got the hope to get through to the third round. But it should be, I hope, a better game, because that was a disaster to play in with the 70-mile-an-hour winds that were blowing against us.
You didn't take me as a leggings guy, by the way, Benny.
Oh, dude, Charles, let me tell you something, Chuck. It was 70-mile-an-hour winds. It was like 10 degrees. My muscles are 40 years old. It was for the pure fact that I didn't want to pull a quad or a groin.
Wait a second. Was that you in that tackle that they showed? I didn't have my glasses on. Did they show an image of you going over? Can we put? Is there any chance of putting that picture up? It looked like I'm going to put my glasses on here.
If my former player, Natty Clark, just like throwing me down to the ground. I don't even remember that play, Tony.
Oh, I thought that was you flying into a tackle in that one. Yeah. All right. Well, you're because you're talking about your muscles being, and then I'm like, dude's flying in. Look, you look like you're flying into this tackle here.
I look like I'm gracefully.
Wow!
Fall.
Your leg
that looks like a red card to me. That's
this is red card. This is red card.
What do you mean?
This is one of your ex-players?
This is a scissors challenge.
Foot's on the ball.
Foot's on the ball, and the only contact that I actually see my body making with him is my left arm on his elbow there.
That left leg's coming around, bro. That's for sure. No foul.
I don't know. VAR, that's a red card. I'm sorry.
There's no VAR in the first couple of rounds of Open Cup. Thank God.
Ah, okay. You're taking your liberties now.
Wow. There you go.
Yes.
Love it, man.
So Benny, talk to us then a little bit about your Sporting Kansas City 2 experience as the coach, and just I feel like one of the things that Peter maybe didn't take as much advantage of as he could have is just like developing the young player. Obviously, he has a good track record though. Eric Palmer Brown came through, Gianluca Busio, right? You got Jake Davis, who's now emerging as a top talent as well. What did you see? And maybe it's not as indicative about Sporting Kansas City, but just kind of that second team experience in general. And do you feel like it's creating the platform that is needed to really allow players to shine and get into first teams around the league?
I had a wonderful time with SKC2 in my 3 years. I think it's a very unique job. You're not a standalone head coach by any means. So it's understanding what the role is. But I do think, to answer your question, I think it's been fantastic for young players. And you see around the league, a lot of second team players that have come through the pipeline from the academy to second team, played a year or two with that second team, and then made the jump, and not only made the jump to, be depth players, but made the jump to become starters on certain teams. I mean, you look at, the best teams to look at are probably Columbus. Nancy has found a way to utilize a lot of those players that played on that Columbus Crew team that actually won MLS Next Pro the first year in 2022, I believe it was. And they've made big jumps to the first team and then won MLS Cup, right, in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. And so, I think it's been fantastic for the league. It's a really, and again, I think it's evolving still. It's getting better. I think the coaches are getting better, understanding a little bit of what the role really is in that environment. And I think it helps coaches improve, right? I think it builds the coaching pipeline to some extent as well, where it gives you experience at a place that is not as cutthroat in terms of you have to win, or you have to, be able to develop a kid over a short period of time or whatever. And you get given opportunities to kind of try things and figure what kind of coach you want to be. And so I do think it's a fantastic thing for MLS in the long run, because it's just going to continue to evolve and improve and give opportunities where it's needed.
All right. We appreciate you. Really quick before we let you go, and we know that we talked kind of at length when you were with us in LA for the Nations League, but I don't know if I asked you this specifically. who do you think are our 3 best playmakers for the U.S. men's national team right now? Because as you were a playmaker for us as well, and you could always make that final pass. That's what I really appreciated about your game. Who do you really value in our player pool that can make that difference? Our best playmakers.
If you talk about guys that are doing it consistently right now, and again, playmakers can mean so many different things, but I would say Pulisic and Weah are the 2 guys that create the most, I think, from those wide positions. So it's not the 10 that maybe you're possibly asking me about, but I think those guys are where a lot of plays come from, right? The ability to take people one-on-one, get down the line, create, man advantages because of the dribble. And then again, we haven't seen enough of him, but what we saw at this last game, Diego Luna, I mean, he's more of the prototypical 10. Have we seen enough to say, yeah, he's a guy that needs to be starting? No, there's no chance. But we've seen moments of his in MLS. And I think we've started to see with obviously this last game, moments of his at the international level that can kind of unbalance an opponent and hopefully give opportunities to those other, one-on-one players a little bit more, where they have an advantage when they get the ball, as opposed to they get the ball and there's 2-3 guys behind the ball. So I think those 3 are the guys that I'm looking at, and obviously there's other guys, but right now those are the 3 that I see.
I'm a little disappointed. Stop it right now. I'm a little disappointed.
One
player in this player pool who is a midfielder, who is of Brazilian descent, and you have failed to mention that this guy is kind of in between, like you were. You could play D midi, but you could play number 10. You could play number 8. You were kind of the player who could dictate tempo if you wanted.
Who are we talking about?
Johnny Cardoso.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say. I was just making sure.
Give me your assessment on Johnny Cardoso.
So here's the unfortunate part. I haven't seen Johnny Cardoso play as much as some of the other players. So I don't want to, say what I don't know. I know he's done well with Real Betis recently, and I know he scored, right, Johnny? Jimmy, you just mentioned it, how he scored, him and Cucho, the US MLS connection over there. But he's obviously had a lot of positive years now at the club level. He was playing in Brazil for a period of years as well, where I didn't get to follow him. I wasn't watching enough Brazilian soccer back then, because only now is it available to us over so many apps. And so I've been watching a lot more Brazilian soccer recently, but I don't know enough of Johnny. I've always thought maybe he's a little bit more of an 8 than a 10, but I'm going to start watching him more. All right, Charlie, the next time you have me on, I'm going to have a better idea of what I can say, positive, negative, and if I think that he's the guy that can maybe produce some of those creative moments for us on the national team.
Yeah, I still think there's a conversation about the deep line playmaker that could obviously be a nice partnership with someone that's more of a traditional 10. But we're going to have to say that for the next time. Benny Feilhaber, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Benny.
You didn't throw your name in for the Sporting Kansas City job, but we're pulling for you. We're hoping that you get it. And
that is, Jimmy, that is my dream job. It always has been. It's what I told Peter when he first gave me the job as a second team coach. We'll see what happens, whether it's now or sometime in the future. I'll always be interested in that job.
Well, first things first, don't pull a muscle on Wednesday against Union Omaha.
Benny
Feilhaber, everybody. We're going to take our next break. A call what you want. When we come back, more of the good stuff. So keep it right here.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Boom. Welcome back to your favorite average to goodness. That is Call It What You Want. I'm Conrad Dino alongside Big Tones and Chuck Wagon. Fun interview there with Benny Feilhaber. And now this is my favorite. We didn't even tease this, Chuck, but we knew it was coming, but I didn't give it to the audience at the beginning, and that's on me. I didn't menu the show well enough. But we are having a U.S. men's national team striker depth chart conversation. Yes. And the producers asked you to list your 1 through 5. So I did center backs. Yeah, I got the flamethrower came out for me for center backs. Big Tones did, but goalkeepers. And now it's your turn, resident number 9. Let's talk striker depth chart, because
let's go.
Flo Balogun returned for Monaco, right? We saw Josh Sargent obviously scoring. Ricardo Pepi still hurt, but anyway, I'm just throwing out names at this point because I want to get your list. And this is for the Gold Cup roster. I just want to make sure that's clear for everybody.
Yes. So of players who will hopefully get called in for the Gold Cup,
Ooh.
first we're going Balogun. I think
Okay.
that's not even a question. Mind you, for everybody seeing the graphic on our YouTube channel right now, Ricardo Pepi is recovering from an ACL. He will not be good to go probably until December, January, if we're lucky. I think it's going to be a long process, and when he's back to full fitness, I think we're talking 2026 at the start of it, 2020 early or late 2025. So Balogun, Haji Wright, number 2. He's playing the 9 now for Frank Lampard at Coventry City. He scored a hat trick against Sunderland. He played around 77 minutes. This weekend. They lost, not the best performance. Patrick Gajiman, like you said, Tony, he's scoring goals for the U.S. Men's National Team. Is there a lot to work with? Absolutely. Is he perfect? Is he the finished product? By no means. But I think we've seen enough in him to say, man, the potential is great. He gives you something different. He's kind of moved up the pecking order. Number 4, Damian Downs, who's gonna get called in. He's at Cologne right now. He's scoring goals. He had a hand surgery, which didn't allow him to get to come into the Nations League camp. But I think he's ready for an opportunity, at least to be brought into camp and kind of see what he can do. Big, he makes good runs, and he's scored a good amount of goals right now in the Bundesliga too. And number 5 is Josh Sargent. He's not going to get off the list. He's still at number 5. I think he's still ahead of Brandon Vasquez, who hasn't really hit his mark with Austin right now in MLS. So unfortunately, as well as Josh is playing in the championship, it hasn't translated to the U.S. Men's National Team, which then Pochettino doesn't have time to waste. So he drops to the bottom of this depth chart.
5 feels pretty harsh for Josh Sargent, by the way. I know he hasn't scored in 5 years, but just given how well he's been performing for Norwich, Big Tones, that feels a little rough. Let's pretend Chuck isn't here. Let's just talk trash about it.
No, it's hard to talk trash for me about the list. I'm glad you're a little bit more sold on Ajiman maybe than you were before this camp. Only because look, I don't think we can discount the fact that he's scoring goals, and he didn't score. I don't think he scored this weekend, right? They lost to Colorado 2-0, right? So he doesn't score this weekend, but I don't know that that's exactly how I judge him. And you have to, if you're just looking at just numbers, you have to bring him back. You have to give him another opportunity. My question would be, if we could assume for 1 minute that Ricardo Pepi was available for this, based on your list, Josh Sargent wouldn't be coming in, I would imagine, right? Or he wouldn't be coming into this camp. And my only question is, I find it hard with if we had 5 guys scoring goals everywhere, then it's one thing. But the fact that he's scoring goal at the club level, and I know it's frustrating, he hasn't scored for the U.S. What did we say? Was it 2019 or something like that? I think it was. Yeah. Do you not bring him in if he continues to score goals at Norwich if no one else is scoring goals? That would be my only question.
I would say if we're talking national team camp, the provisional roster for the World Cup. So we've already moved through 2026. Season's ending, and we're looking at the list then because a lot can change. Think about injuries. Balogun, he's played 2 matches in 5 months, right? 82 minutes in 5 months. And the unfortunate part of the injury with Balogun is last year it didn't really hit off at Monaco. I think he struggled quite a bit with that adjustment. But this year he scored in 3 straight matches heading into that October 5th. Scored 3 straight matches, gets the shoulder injury, and it just disrupted him because it finally felt like he found his groove and he was ready to score goals for Monaco. So Haji Wright, I think, comes in because the guy is scoring the World Cup already in a knockout round. As fluky as the goal was, it still hit the back of the net. He put himself in that position. I look at kind of his experience with the U.S. Men's National Team, Nations League against Jamaica to come in and change the game and score goals. And now he's playing in the championship, just similar to Josh Sargent, but at least he's done it with the national team when he's been called upon, whether it's coming off the bench, which I think that's a real value. It's saying, okay, who can I count on to come off the bench and make a difference? So I think Haji Wright pops there. And then Ajiman, I think you put it best. he's a work in progress. This is going to be a process. So I think that's just how it goes. And so for Sargent, if he keeps scoring goals, great. I think we've all agreed this summer is a pivotal moment for him, because we all think he should move so that when you're scoring goals consistently in a better league, in a top league, maybe he's competing in Europe as well, that's only going to benefit him, give him more looks, more opportunities with the national team. Otherwise, I think Pochettino's going to still say, yeah, okay, I've seen a lot of goal scorers score in the championship, but that doesn't mean you get it into the national team. And how many goal scorers have we seen in MLS? Same thing. Score goals in MLS, but national team, not quite the material you need to progress.
Chuck, when you think about our strikers,
yeah,
I mean, the ones that I played with, I had Brian McBride. We'll use him as an example, former co-host of the show, McBrizzle. Hope you're doing well. And his hold-up play was tremendous, right? And that allowed us.
You could say world class in the air. No, without a doubt, McBride was world class in the air, and arguably world class with hold-up play.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone would ever say, well, so we're talking about two, in Brian McBride's case, we're talking about two exceptional qualities that no one else in the pool had on top of that.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the pool that has like those types of qualities in those two areas? Because Ajimang, he's got the size.
We don't.
Right. And so that gives me a concern, because it gives you a different dynamic. If you know that in any situation, I always knew in the back, like if I was under a little bit of pressure and I could play kind of similar to what you're saying before, Tones, this really resonated with me about Matt Turner. I could play the third split ball that maybe is a bit riskier, but I want to prove that I can play it. Or I could just play the simple one out wide. Or if I'm in a ton of pressure, I always had an option. I could always play a little teardrop to Brian McBride, and the guy would hold it up, and we would somehow figure out a way to then establish our attack or our transition from there. And I just don't know if we have that as an outlet, and that gives me some concern. We could throw Brandon Vasquez into the conversation. I don't know how consistent he is at hold-up play. He's a big, strong guy, but can he do it consistently? Can he hold back in and hold up center backs and allow? I just don't think we see it. And then I don't think we have a out-and-out header where you just throw a cross in and you know this guy's going to get on the end of it. And that
we don't even have Eddie Johnson. So I know that's another striker you played with. So
yes,
think about the different profiles we had as strikers. And I go back to 2009, right? So I'm a striker and Josie's a striker. Brian Ching was in the squad, and I think of, wow, we complemented each other well. So if you wanted to play with a single striker, but back then it wasn't often. A lot of teams played with two, but me and Josie complemented each other well because he was phenomenal at hold up play. We made runs that complemented each other well, and I could run off of him. We don't even have one that's exceptional with hold up play, and we don't have one that's exceptional with movement off the ball or one-on-one ability.
Chuck,
we don't have that.
So Chuck, I think we're agreeing, right? We don't have a header like Brian McBride, right? We just don't have one of those guys. So the other quality you're talking about is hold up play. Who is our best hold up play guy?
Ricardo Pepi.
I would have said the same thing. Ricardo Pepi. Yeah, and he doesn't offer that in the air. And then who's after him? Is it Balogun? Is he a hold up guy?
No,
he's more running off the shoulders.
Balogun is not a back to goal kind of striker. He's just, that's just not his game. What he's very good at, and I think what it's clear to see for most people, is technical ability. His technique is phenomenal. You could probably say up there with among the best forwards the U.S. men's national team has ever had in terms of just technical ability. What he does really well is he makes good runs, well-timed runs. He finds space, and he's a good finisher. So he doesn't have the aerial ability. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't have the hold-up play. But if you asked him to be complemented with somebody else, that's why he's played on the wing at times. In a 4-3-3, he's played as a winger who can kind of come in, or a withdrawn striker. But he's not your typical, I'm going to hold up the ball and bring other players into the final third.
Do you think hold up play is a lost art, Chuck? I even when I'm when I'm in the midst of it, coaching youth soccer right now, I don't see a lot of players that are good at owning the space before the ball gets to them. One player that I thought was tremendous was El Pescadito, Carlos Ruiz. I always had trouble with him. Guatemalan international, LA Galaxy, ton of success. Speaking of FC Dallas as well, right? But
he got his body on you, right, Jimmy?
Yeah,
he got his body on you. Yeah.
Yeah,
the mind games. The mind games were world class.
Yeah, world class mind games.
And then you come and he flops. You know, he was
traditionally center backs. You love playing center back because you're the one that initiates the contact and you're kind of controlling the physical part of the game, and that allows you to kind of own the space, or you can give him a little bump as the ball comes to him. Carlos Ruiz was unreal, world class at I'm going to hit you first. I'm going to establish the space, and now I'm going to control kind of the 5 yards in front of me, and you're not going to be able to see the ball. The guy was a master at it. Other players that I played against that were good. Cuauhtemoc Blanco was awesome at it too. Guillermo Barros Schelotto, like the little tiny cutest button playmakers.
I'll tell you,
these guys were
Romario, Sergio Aguero,
amazing.
We're talking about guys who had an ability to hold you off. They could turn you, and then because they got into the center backs' heads, knowing that these guys are strong as hell. If I go up, I'm going to get turned.
Yeah,
that's when they could just let the ball run by them, and they're running at you full speed. We're talking about threats, right? Real threats in different ways. Look at Erling Haaland for a perfect example. The guy can hold up the ball, but he's not asked to hold up the ball. He's just asked to get in the box. He barely touches the ball throughout 90 minutes. You're saying, what the hell? But he'll score 5 goals because he just gets on the end of crosses. So 100%, Jimmy, with the it's like a lost art.
But you're talking about Romario. Like, this is like a different level.
No, world class.
How frustrating, Jimmy, when the forward's a little guy like that, smaller guy, but stockier and big at the waist, like strong at the waist, and then he's soul rolling the ball on you as you're trying to battle him. He's got the ball in the bottom of his soul, and you're like, he's gonna spin me, man. Oh, I played against him 3 or 4 times, and I can remember defenders talking about it, going, yeah, don't let him spin you. And here he is, just kind of holding you off. He's got his leg out, and he's got the ball in his soul, and you're like, please, someone come and help me, man. Help me.
They're not troubled. They're so comfortable with the physical side of the game and with contact. And Chuck, you bring it up. I'm gonna say it in a different way, just to make sure we hammer it home, especially for any coaches out there that are kind of helping blood the next generation to be top players. What's important about the hold-up play, to your point, Chuck, or to as well as you, Tones, when you can get it into a spot and you're holding the player off and you're just doing soul rolls and you kind of got a big smile on your face, it just allows you to now do whatever you want. Like the next time, you can now drop your shoulder, let it run through your legs, and try to spin me and go. Like, you've created the opportunity for that to happen. The players that I see a lot now are so predictable. They're going to try to do that spin and run. But then if you have any defender that's got a brain and can think the game, they're like, okay, I know what this player is going to do every single time. And then once you take that away, that player's got that attacking player's got nothing else, and they're frustrated and their head goes down and they got no bite because they got no other options. They have to have the hold up play is so.
Oh, Carlos Tevez is a great one. Carlos Tevez was
another. That's a good one. Yeah, I'm sure everybody has plenty of examples. But I don't see that. I don't see that in our player pool, and so that gives me a little bit of concern right now with the 5 names that you mentioned, because Ricardo Pepi, arguably the best, but I don't see it consistently where we can actually be like, hey, we're going to dump it to this guy, and we're going to make runs with real purpose. Sometimes, when you play and there's a guy that can do it every once in a while, if you're out on the wing, you're like, I could run it with everything I got, but he doesn't always hold up the ball, and I don't want to get caught defensively going the other way, so I'm not going to run with 100% purpose. But when you're around somebody that can hold up the ball, you're running your ass off to get into good spots because you know the ball's going to get there.
So Chuck,
fine margin.
That's a great way to look at it, Jim. Chuck, here's my question. Then we're talking about the things we don't have, right? We don't have a guy. So let's just take 2 of them, Balogun and Pepi, right? Because I think they're probably the consensus of the 2 guys in 2026 if we had to bet, right? Assuming Pepi comes back. What do you need to see more from them? What do you need to see more of from each of those guys? Because we can't take what they don't have and use it. We got to take what they have and use it.
So I think let's start with Balogun. So 1, he's got to stay healthy, right? I never had a shoulder injury, so I don't know, what what that looks like. Is he prone to re-injury if he falls on it? But I think what we can say is Balogun is an elite finisher. So can he continue to just put himself in good positions? So if we're watching him play, how many times is he getting the ball on the half turn? How many times is he running at guys? How many times is he getting the ball in the attacking third? How many shots is he generating? I don't think he's the most gifted playmaker, like opening space for other people, like playing them through. But in terms of getting on that ball and then firing a shot off quick, I think he has a quick release. That's where we want to see him heading into the World Cup. Can he develop a little bit more of a hold-up play, like being stronger? Because I know as much as you guys have said, holding up the ball and turning and taking your time, it's also hold up the ball, take a foul. And let the team let the guys breathe, move up the field. I loved, that's one thing I loved, because you talked about Carlos Ruiz, we talked about Romario. I loved watching them play because of, and Carlos Tevez, how good they were at drawing fouls at the right time, knowing that, okay, I could turn and run and try and make something happen, but I know right now my team needs me to take a foul. I'm going to take a foul, get this guy irritated, but also allow my team to breathe.
Listen, the hold-up play, Chuck, that's key, right? You can draw fouls in dangerous areas on the field. It allows your team to transition in meaningful ways and have guys run with some real purpose. And then on an individual basis, it allows you to kind of set up and play mind games with the center backs or whoever you're going up against. Like, hey, I can hold it up, but also you might think I'm holding it up this time. I'm actually going to roll you and let it run between my legs and see what happens. I mean, there's just so much value to that. And I feel like we're missing that consistently in our player pool. With Ricardo Pepi out, that's going to be a bit of an issue. Now, we're running out of time, but I wanted to get to our Milan resident super fan, Tony Meola, about Christian Pulisic. And Milan losing to Napoli 2-1, but at 2-0, there was a penalty for Milan. And Christian Pulisic, who's already been mired in controversy with this penalty kick situation before when it got taken off of his hands earlier in the season under Paulo Fonseca, he ends up handing the ball over to Santi Jimenez, who ends up taking it and missing it. And now Sergio Conceição says there's three guys that take it. And yeah, what are we saying about Pulisic handing the ball off, I guess, first and foremost? And should he have – I mean, it could be really simple. He's just trying to be a nice guy. But also, we would like to see him have a little bit more backbone and selfishness. I don't know which word you want to use there to be like, no, this is me. This is my job. This is my role. And this is what I'm supposed to do for my team.
Yeah, we need all of that from him, right? I was shocked. I was surprised only because you mentioned there was already one episode. This was not like it's the first one.
Right.
Conceição in his press conference says something to the effect that, like, he's just being a good teammate. He wanted to see his teammate Santi Jimenez get a goal, in league play and all that. And I'm like, yeah, screw that, man. When you have the goal scoring bug, like, you got to want to score goals all the time, and a penalty kick is an opportunity to score a goal. And I think it's more his personality, right? Like, we're seeing it in the doc. If you watch the doc on Paramount, you see his personality. He still wants to shun the fact that he's like the star that everyone is expecting. He just wants to. I'm putting it simply. He just wants to play soccer, right? Like, that's what he wants to do. But yeah, I was shocked. I thought, and of course, this is Fonseca. When he was there, Christian, it was clear after that episode that Christian is the penalty kick taker. It sounds like Conceição, there's a gray area there. And I'm a fan. I don't know. You guys are the ones. I'm a fan of always knowing who was going to be the guy. I was pissed when my name wasn't on the board for 20 years of my career, but at least I knew going into the game, like, Charlie Davies, you're the number one penalty kicker. If Charlie Davies is not in the game, then Jimmy Conrad, you're number two penalty kick taker. Like, then it'd be
11.
Yeah, you're probably after me in that category. But
I should be.
But I don't know. Then there's no discussion, right? At least I never thought there would be. Now, I can understand the one when, your teammate has 2 goals, you're up 3-0, your teammate has 2 goals, he created the penalty kick, you want to give him the hat trick potentially. Like, I understand that one.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is like Christian being a good teammate. The one where you need a goal, you need to get back in the game, that's the one I have a little more problem with trying to explain to myself, hey, this is the right thing to do, because it didn't seem like the right thing to do.
Chuck, I know you want to chime in here. I can feel it. I can feel it.
No. I think for me, it's basically what Thierry Henri was saying before the pregame, right? It's you have guys who are they are the way they are. They're aggressive. They're selfish. I've played with those guys. If that was a penalty kick taker and the whether my name's on the board or not, I've taken the kicks for the team and I've been successful. I'm grabbing the ball. It's mine. Get out of here. I've been here. I've been producing for this team. I don't care how long you how much you need a goal. This is the order. This is how things run here. And unfortunately, you're not getting it. Now, if it's 3-0, 4-0, 4-1, the game is about to be over, it's a penalty kick, then you can gift the PK. When the game's not on the line, you say, okay, Santi Jimenez, I get it. You've been struggling. I know the game's already over. I'm going to gift you. But when we're talking about the game's on the line, I'm not giving a penalty away. And I think Christian is one of those guys that's selfless. He's as much as we want him to be a selfish, a-hole, it's not going to happen. It's just just not in. It's not in his DNA. That's just not who he is. He's a team first guy. He's humble. He's not somebody who's going to be like, hey, it's all about me. I'm going to get this PK. It's all about goals. He's not he doesn't have the Cristiano Ronaldo mentality. He doesn't have the Leo Messi mentality. That's just not who he is. And we just have to kind of be okay with that. That's who he is. Right. Accept it. He's a wonderful player. He's a terrific player. But he's not the guy that people want him to be. And so just let him be who he is.
So Christian's quote from the documentary, which you can find on Paramount Plus, was that he was lacking that cocky confidence that the very best players have. And I think this was a good example of that. Because if he had that cocky confidence, he wasn't sharing that ball with anybody. And yes, I think there's a big conversation to have about who our captain maybe should be moving forward, because I don't know if Christian is the best guy for that. I'm just throwing it out there. That's a tease for our next show, because we're calling it on this one. We're coming back for you on Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll go live 7 a.m. Pacific on the Golasso America YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you listen to this on your podcast platform of choice, give us reviews, say how great we are or how average to good we are, whatever you want to write. But please keep it positive. We like the positivity over here. And that's it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in a couple of days. This has been
Thank
a great
you, guys.
Thank you for Benny Feilhaber for coming on as well. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon. Later.